celebrating and showcasing extraordinary people who are doing incredible things to make our world a better place. This is Close Up Television. I'm your host, Jim Masters, and thanks so much for joining us. On today's episode, we celebrate Tina Thomson. Tina Thomson is an accomplished executive as well as certified leadership coach. She's the founder of Epiphany Leadership Development and Coaching, a leadership coaching organization dedicated to empowering and evoking excellence in others. Tina shows executives how to show up each day with enthusiasm to motivate their teams. Tina's method is called blended coaching, some advice, some consulting, and a significant portion of coaching. Tina has authored her autobiography. She did that back in 2016. It's called Good Souls, Bad Souls, Assholes, a book of gratitude to all the people who influenced her life. As a Greek South African woman executive in a patriarchal society like South Africa, it was not easy, she says. Inspired by her miracle son Nicholas, her purpose has never wavered. Cultural and emotional intelligence coupled with a clear sense of purpose and 20-plus years in global C-suite roles, Tina has valuable leadership insights. She's founded and managed 4 successful businesses, 2 in retail and an Australian teaching franchise, and her coaching practice, Epiphany Leadership Coaching. In 2018, she launched the Female Wave of Change in the USA. She serves as their honorary global ambassador. Tina has held several global executive board positions as well, and she sits on the President's Council at St. Thomas Aquinas College. Tina is the executive advisor to the board at Frisbee Group in Palm Beach, Florida as well. And above all else, Tina is the mother of her miracle son, Nicholas, and his loving wife, Lisa. And she is the doting grandmother to baby Alexa. Now, to learn more about Tina's incredible work and her own personal journey, she joins me today in the Close-Up Television studio for this exclusive interview. Tina, welcome to Close-Up Television and Radio. We've already done a radio show with you, a couple of them actually, and they were fantastic. And because of that, as a result, wanted to dig in a little deeper into your experience, your background, and the passion and enthusiasm you have for what you do. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much.
How was the flight? You came up from warm and sunny Florida, huh?
To this crazy weather.
Yes, at the time of this filming, it's a little bit nippy here, but you're warming us up with your heart and soul and the work that you do. I want to know first, you know, we all have our own life's journey, and your journey has been absolutely extraordinary on so many different levels. You grew up in South Africa, right?
Yes.
What initially brought you to the States? Tell us early on, maybe some of the journey in South Africa first.
Sure. So I was born in South Africa, and so were my parents, but we are Greek.
Yes, that's right.
Right. And, you know, growing up there was actually extraordinarily, I was privileged because it was really beautiful.
Yeah.
It's changed now, unfortunately, but it was really good.
How did having the influences of various cultures and exposure to various cultures also enhance your work and understanding and appreciation of people in general?
Right, very much so. You've hit the nail on the head. A myriad of cultures, and I think that growing up in Springs, which is just south of Johannesburg, did me the world of good.
Yeah.
Reason is, in Springs, it was a mining town, gold mining town, and there was a large Jewish population.
Yeah.
And I often say that my culture, you know, theater, opera, all the good things in life, came from there. You know, it was a very rich society in terms of culture. So that definitely influenced me.
I know we're going to talk about your extraordinary, work today, but you have a theatrical connection, right?
Yes,
Tell us about that.
Yes. So if my father hadn't intervened, I'd be on the stage.
Really?
Yes. I love theatre. I did a tremendous amount at school, in high school as well. I produced plays as well as acting in plays. And my qualification is from Trinity College of London, drama.
Yes.
And so it was really my life. I then left school and got into an amateur rep society. And my very first audition, I landed a big role, but it was in a farce. And my father and my fiancé sitting in the audience said, "That's it, no more." And
no more farce.
Unfortunately, that was it. So I taught, obviously alongside all the work that I did in the formal workplace.
But I bet that theatrical background helped with the teaching and presentation and connection with people, because you have that presentation understanding.
Yes.
Which is great. Do you still have that bug? Is that something that maybe at some point you would, whether it's community theater or anything else, off Broadway or anything, would you still pursue that?
I'd love to. I just think I might not be up to scratch anymore.
Up to scratch. That's a farce. You never know, right? Never say never. And you certainly have it in your extraordinary career. So was the transition from South Africa straight to the United States, or were there other places in between in your travel?
So, during 2008, which was a big year for the whole world,
Yes.
not only for me,
Yes.
my son was headhunted to come to the US, to New York. And at the time, I was working for a Dutch company out of the Netherlands, and I was traveling extensively, often more in the air than on the ground.
Yes, right.
But I decided then that, enough. I'd worked across 45 countries.
Wow.
And eventually said, no, I want to be on the same piece of land as my son. You asked, how did I get here?
Yes.
Well, it was because my son was here.
Your son, you describe as a miracle child, a miracle. Tell us about that.
He truly is a miracle. He was born with every problem in the book. A rare condition they call exomphalos. And being Greek, I fully understood, when I translated it, it was external belly button. So my son was born with all his intestines and stomach external to the body. And weirdly, there are a lot of conspiracy theories about it. In Johannesburg, at the Johannesburg General Hospital, there were 4 little boys, and they were all born with the same condition. 4 others, so 5 altogether.
Yeah.
None of them made it.
They didn't. No.
And so, yes, my son is a miracle. Professor John Chappell operated on him.
Wow. Yeah.
God is good.
Yes.
God is good.
And his experience has influenced you on so many different ways, and even in the work that you do today, right? Tell us how that experience, you're an incredible executive and sort of a leadership coach and so much more. You've owned and managed companies of all kinds, and we'll talk about that. You're involved in humanitarian causes and a lot of wonderful things. But how has that experience, personal experience with your son, sort of framed some of what you do and believe in and how you go about it all?
Jim, it really was the event that changed my life completely. When you have trials, your faith is tested.
Yes.
And also, with various crises that I've had, it puts everything into perspective. I often, when things are going well and I'm riding a high wave,
right.
I always remember that that experience, has to actually lead my thoughts, my resilience, and the gratitude that I feel, gratitude for that miracle life. And to this day, he's a teacher of mine. He's an old soul.
Isn't that incredible?
And he is very wise, and he teaches me a lot.
So you learn from each other
Yes.
in the way that you do. That's incredible, huh?
Yeah.
So when you were embarking on creating, your very first business, the thing you wanted to do first, what was that?
At the tender age of 20 years of age, I was married. I got married on my 19th birthday, which is crazy, but it's the way it was. My father said to me, you've got to go into business, create some wealth, and so that, you can take off from there. And my ex-husband and his two brothers and myself and one of my sister-in-laws went down to Zululand in South Africa and had a large grocery cum diner in the sugar fields. But it did have the monopoly because the nearest town was about 100 kilometers away. And so very good business. And that was the first. However, it was down in Pongola, Zululand, where I realized I'm not going to be married to this guy for very long. And I had actually left him and then realized that I was pregnant. And so I went back. But that was the first business, hard work, 4 o'clock in the morning. The old South Africa, which was still very much apartheid, so one store but two areas, segregated. Not ideal.
A patriarchal way of thinking
Very
as well.
patriarchal.
Yeah, not open to a lot of different things that the rest of the world is. Right?
Correct. And we were brought up, as I've said, we are Greek. Both my parents were Greek. Very liberally.
Yeah.
And
passionate,
so
expressive.
Very passionate. Very real. Very fair. The Greeks had gone to South Africa and opened up eateries and restaurants and corner cafes. And because of their philotimo, which is a word that the word philanthropy comes from, and philotimo directly translated is friend of man, okay, so and honor, so timi is honor. They fed the hungry. They fed the masses because they could. They were in the food business.
They were in the food business. Yeah.
And so, as Greeks in South Africa, we actually were ostracized as siding with the masses.
Right.
It was quite a complex situation. A lot of learning, a lot of being able to assess humanity.
Right.
Really.
On many different levels.
Yes.
So when did you decide you wanted to go into the world of coaching and specifically have that emphasis on executive and leadership coaching? What were some of the things that led you up to that point where you were saying, this is what I want to do? And did you realize that, or were people saying to you, you'd be great as a coach because you're constantly coaching people all day long anyway?
Correct. I do believe I've been coaching, all my life type of thing. But again, in 2008, I had a whistleblowing experience. Dramatic. Okay? My life was endangered. And my mentor at the time, Professor Jill Marcus, who was, at the time she was at the business school, but she ended up being the governor of the central bank, so, you know, arguably more powerful than the president. She said to me when I exited it was the government actually, the whistleblowing, and I had to literally be underground for 3 months with a bodyguard. And I said to her, now what? You know, and she said to me, Tina, you've got a coach. And I said to her, no way. You know, every second person is a coach. I'm not doing that.
It's like the thing to be, right? Yeah.
And she said, Tina, you know, just do it the right way, get qualified, get accreditation, get the global accreditation with the ICF.
Which is important.
You have so much to share. And she was saying that on the strength of having watched me be a CEO, you know, for 2 full years in a national organization. So a lot of leadership, I literally turned it around. It was an organization in trouble. And that's where the idea, you know, the seed was planted. And from there, yes, I did get qualified. I've done 4 different coaching qualifications,
Tell us about those. Yeah.
So the first one, actually, I don't even know who paid for it. I got a call one day to say there's a benefactor who sees your leadership capability, and there's a course in the Netherlands for you to attend. Wow. Naturally, I looked into it quite carefully because it sounded quite
is
weird.
It real? And, is this a real situation?
And it was outstanding. It was with the MMS. So the founder is American, the great Cherie Carter Scott.
Oh,
She's
wow.
written many New York bestsellers. And it was her sister, Lynn, who did the coaching course for me in the Netherlands. So that was the first one, and then the bug bit. And I was still living in South Africa at the time. That was about 2005, 6. Then, of course, 2008, Jill Marcus said, do this properly. I did a course called Thumbprint Leadership Coaching, which, of course, is each one of us has a unique thumbprint.
That's right.
So that was very good. And then I came to the US and started doing various courses. And the remarkable one that got me the ICF accreditation was with the ICA, International Coaching Academy. Mm-hmm. And that was a full 2 years. So very intense, very good course to do.
So let's talk about your style of coaching, executive and then leadership as well. How do you describe your particular style? There are other executive and leadership coaches out there, but everybody has their own approach, their own perspective, their own life's journey that they bring to it, their own personality. For you, how would you describe some of your approach and the uniqueness of the way you approach it?
Right. So I'm what they call a blended coach.
Right.
Okay, so I do pure coaching, I do consulting, and I do actual advising. So pure coaching doesn't allow the coach to give advice. But I felt, and I was thrilled that the ICF allowed this, I felt that why should my client not benefit from some of the situations I've been in?
Right.
I wanted to share, if it was appropriate, of course, and I always ask my client, may I offer something? And, when they've never said no. And then I'll share, and often it fast tracks the client, instead of them having to search through powerful questions to get to their answers.
So there are characteristics and things that can describe sort of the zest that you have, this inner passion and desire to want to help people overall, and to help them in a way that allows them to live authentically and be really the best version of themselves. Mm-hmm. What would be some of those characteristics, those things about you that allow people to be able to get to that point in their lives? Is it you provide a safe zone for them, you're non-judgmental, you develop and establish trust with them with you in the beginning that allow them to open up because they may share things with you that they never share with anybody? What are some of those variables?
So critical, everything that you've said, and developing that trust is key. But I think that, my general grounding, if you will, as a child in South Africa, where we have Ubuntu, okay? Ubuntu is a beautiful word, and of course it's throughout the continent of Africa, but in South Africa
what does it
means
yeah.
I am because we are. So it's a very inclusive way of life, again, humanity. And then the philotimo, which I mentioned earlier from
yes.
the Greek, also, honoring human beings.
So combining
and their uniqueness. And so, and over and above all of that, I'm an empath.
Yes.
And so I feel strongly, and I also believe it's a calling. As I mentioned earlier, I am a person of faith. I'm a believer.
Right.
And I feel that that's my calling, is to actually support other people. So even my leadership style, I'm a servant leader. I don't like being out in front.
So you don't come in, rah, 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 let's go, do 50 push-ups, come on, you can do it. You're much more of an understated sort of coming in, compassion, comfort, lifting up, inspiring.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's more my approach to things too.
Creating that psychological safety.
Right.
You then evoke the best out of people as opposed to directing.
Where they feel challenged. We all need to be challenged, but in a way where it puts them off. Some people are put off by that sort of aggressive. You come in a gingerly way.
Yes.
Which actually probably has even deeper, more long-lasting results.
Right. And I participate as well.
Yes.
So, and again, that goes back to my drama training as a teacher, where you do teacher in role.
Yes.
I'm a leader in role all the time. I won't ask anyone to do something if I can't do it myself.
I like that. That's a great approach. Right, exactly. So that makes you relatable to your clients as well, because relatability is so important, isn't it? To have the ability to relate. And you probably even share elements of your own story with them, which I think is a beautiful thing, because they're going to be sharing things with you. So they're like, she's the expert. She's the certified coach. She's got all this experience. She's had companies and all of these things. But Tina is a real person. Right. And sometimes that penetrates even deeper than all the other accreditations and credentials sometimes, right?
Absolutely. And it's about listening too.
Yes.
So I'm a great listener, and I will bring exactly what's being asked,
One of the things that you're an advocate for a lot of beautiful things, but you advocate for women specifically as well. And you brought the organization Female Wave of Change to the USA back in 2018 when I was doing the research here, and you launched it in New York City. Tell us about what the organization is, because it sounds really cool, and your desire to bring that, to the forefront.
Right, certainly. So it's European-based. The founder is Ingun. She's really quite something. And again, she came out of the IT industry, and she was one of the only women you can imagine.
To come out of that, from tech.
And she has daughters and granddaughters. And she got together with a group of women to say, what can we do to bring more feminine energy to leadership in the world? Okay, on every level.
Every level.
Okay, so looking at the sustainability goals, the global sustainability goals, literally from climate change right through, how do we bring that different style of leadership? Never ever leaving the men out of it, because we have two different skill sets. We bring different things to the table. So when you bring the two together, you get a really good outcome. But there are no women at those big tables. Okay, I've done research, and it's shocking to see how few women are in executive directorships. They're in the non-decision-making executive positions, but not in the profit and loss. So that's how it started. And when Ingun phoned me in 2017, I'd said to her, well, why is this different? Why would I get involved? I'd done a lot of work in women empowerment. And when she gave me her business background, and that it wasn't all, knocking the male gender, because I don't like that at all, I realized this is something I can get behind. And so I said to her, I'll open up the US for you. I was the US ambassador at the time, and it went off extremely well. But of course, being who I am and having a full-time job at the same time, I really felt burnt out doing all of the events as well myself. And so I started to appoint in different states of the US ambassadors to do the work. And then I became the...
it's always good to delegate. It's not easy to learn to delegate, right?
It's
I've had to
important.
learn to be a delegator.
Yes.
It's not easy, especially when it's your baby, when it's your concept, vision, and there's so much of the essence of who you are wrapped up in it. To hand it off, or elements of it, to others can be, dicey in the beginning, getting used to that.
Absolutely.
But it's healthy to do that.
Yes.
So you have these other ambassadors who sort of...
Yes.
That's fantastic.
And empower others too,
To empower others, right.
A good leader creates other leaders.
Yes.
So
yeah.
important.
You also, too, there's a vignette in your book that has the title, Do All Women Leaders Have a PhD? And here is the book, Good Souls, Bad Souls, and Blasphemy. No. Good Souls, Bad Souls, and Assholes. In a minute, we'll talk about how she came up with the title. But tell us about that. Do all women leaders have a PhD? And that vignette that's actually in the book.
Sad. It's a very sad state of affairs, unfortunately. So when I was CEO, often, on TV shows, the media would approach me and talk about it. Initially, I actually didn't know what they were talking about, because I often worked in male-dominated industries prior to that. And I'd never come across the PhD, which stands for Pull Her Down. And I was horrified when I found out what that was. And I said, I'll never give this voice. Never.
No.
However, the following year, I was chairing a committee, a judging panel of women's awards. And 4 or 5 of the categories had very weak nominees. And so I said, look, let's leave those categories this year, and hopefully next year there'll be more women in those categories. We don't want to dilute the impact of the award. Of course, the media pounced the minute we announced that, and because I chaired the committee, they asked me, it wasn't my process, but they asked me, well, what are you going to do about that? And my answer on the spur of the moment was, well, for next year, we'll put in an extra criteria in the prerequisites, asking the nominated women to nominate a younger woman in the industry. Fast forward to the following year, there were over 500 entries. How many do you think, Jim, nominated other women?
Very.
14.
Wow.
1-4 out of over 500. Wow. And it actually brought me to tears because I thought, so I said to the organizers, bring me the questionnaire. You've made a mistake.
Yeah,
this is impossible.
How could this be? Yeah.
It was one of the first questions that they had to answer. And so I said to the judges, well, we only have 14 people to look through now. The rest are disqualified. And they didn't want to go that route because it would have taken the whole award down.
Right.
The owner of the process didn't want to go that route. So I said, well, I'm out.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm out. These people have not qualified.
Just like Shark Tank, I'm out.
I'm out. A lot of conversation later, they said to me, Tina, if you do that, it's another woman's award process that has failed. So I said, okay, here's the thing. I'll agree to do this if you give me airtime to speak, because it always had a road show in all the big provinces.
Right.
I want to talk about this publicly, and I want you to publish it in your magazine. They had a CEO magazine. They agreed to that, and I want to tell you, at the actual award, there were breakfasts always. You could have heard a pin drop when I congratulated all the nominees, 800 people, 1,000 people. Most of those nominees had bought an entire table for their staff. And I said, well done, but I want to ask you, why didn't you nominate another woman?
Yeah.
And it was quite hairy.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Two of them afterwards, when I got off the stage, came and challenged me, and I said, this isn't the time and place. But that's the PhD syndrome. It was blatant in front of me.
This is the first I heard of it myself, and I'm sure our viewers watching, it's probably the first time they've heard that would be thought of in that way. That's incredible.
Broke my heart.
What inspired you to write Good Souls, Bad Souls, and is my mother watching? Assholes. That is the title, folks. And I tell you, it's a grabber. What inspired you to write this book? I mean, a story like what you just described, I can see could inspire some of this as well.
Right. Well, I've led a very colourful life. 2 divorces, the whistleblowing, being held up at gunpoint twice, and so with every one of those points, my family would joke and say, "That's another chapter in your book."
Right. Were you journaling? Were you journaling any of this? Keeping record and track?
Actually, towards the end, I was.
Started journaling, yeah.
Yes, journaling is superb.
It really is.
And so in 2015, I had a bit of a health scare. And I thought, what if I do become a grandmother and my grandchildren wonder about this crazy life that had 18 jobs, 4 businesses, and all these events happen. Let me write it down. And then slowly but surely I thought, this is a book.
Yeah.
Okay. And my friend Simon Bailey, the great Simon Bailey, said to me, I'm going to write the foreword. And when I saw what he'd written, I thought, okay, I need to publish. And no publisher would publish it because of the content. They said, Tina, you're going to be sued and we're going to get sued. And I said, they can come for me, I've got nothing. The whistleblowing wiped me out.
That took care of everything, yeah.
So then they brought up a case study saying they'll go after your son. And that's when I said, okay, I will not publish. 6 months later, when I had lunch with Simon Bailey, he said, you haven't published yet. I said, Simon, I'm not going to. This is why. And he looked at me and he said, don't you dare leave this planet without publishing that book. He said, my daughter would love to read that book. She'll learn from it. On the cell phone, and he handed me his attorney, and the attorney said, change the names and the place names and publish. And that's the book. I wanted to record the very good people, the good souls that have really put me where I am today. We all stand on the shoulders of giants. Couple of really baddies, and then those in between.
Exactly right. Those in purgatory. That's the purgatory crowd. You mentioned the relationships, and you had been married for some 17 years, and I guess it was sort of an abusive situation on some levels. So some, in reading this book, might even ask, what was it that kept you in that particular relationship for that amount of time? Was it a just stiff upper lip, let's just see if we can, were you always trying to get it to work out? Tell us about that journey.
So it was my second marriage. My first marriage was a 3-year stint.
Yeah.
The second one, I married a man 27 years older than me. And he was insanely jealous of me. I was only 25 at the time. That's my excuse. I was very young.
Yeah.
And he was abusive in every way. Mentally, verbally, physically, and even financially. Okay, so withholding. PhD. Absolutely. And as I said earlier, I am a believer. I believe that, with love, this can change. And I did love him. I loved him very dearly.
Yeah.
And I loved his children. I had 4 stepchildren and I had 2 step-grandchildren. And, 25 years of age. So I thought, I can break the cycle. I have the strength to break the cycle. Not in my own strength, okay?
Yeah.
But, with prayer, this can happen. And I probably would have stayed even longer, but what happened was he started to get jealous of my son.
The attention towards your son.
And that gave me the strength to finally leave. So he adored my son. My son was only 3 years old when I married him. But as my son grew and, finished high school and was achieving marvelous things, and he was the center of attraction, he started to get jealous of my son, and that gave me the strength.
That was it. Yeah. Once you go towards the child.
We're done. Mothers and children, you've heard of them lifting motor vehicles.
Yeah, to be able to. Right.
And I kept saying to the attorney, the divorce attorney, you tell him if he comes near my child. And my son is enormous. He's a great, big, strapping man, but I said, if he comes near my child, I'll actually kill him. And he said, Mrs. Thomson, I can't put that in the documentation.
This is
I
Tina?
said, put it in.
Yeah, right.
I'm Greek.
Right, exactly. The passion's going to come out.
Don't mess with me. So, yes, but again, life gives you these experiences, and it really supports me in my coaching. And counseling too. I do a lot of counseling through the church.
You've lived and continue to live a very full life. Other than a situation like that, are there any regrets in any of it? Or is it all part of a learning experience?
It's all been learning, and I have absolutely no regrets but one, and it's a big one. I didn't know that my father was dying. And I was still married to Bob Thomson. And we went to a family wedding. And something in me kept saying, get up and ask your father to dance. Bizarre, because my father didn't like dancing.
And he
I loved dancing, but
he wasn't going to tell you that he was ill either.
He didn't even tell my mother.
That generation, they're not, yeah.
But, with my husband sitting next to me, and I knew if I left him, there would be a scene. And it was a family wedding. And I sort of weighing it up, because it was an overpowering, do it, Tina, do it. And of course I believe it's the prompting of the Holy Spirit. But I didn't. And 2 weeks later, my dad was gone. So that's my big regret.
How have you reconciled that? Or is that something that doesn't get reconciled?
No, I have. Again, through my belief system.
Right.
My
it wasn't
faith.
that there wasn't love there. It was just, yeah.
Yeah, we forgive. We have to forgive.
And sometimes ourselves is so important.
Exactly. We damage ourselves more than the other person if you don't forgive.
What was the writing process like when you wrote the book?
It was fast. Because
Was it really?
all the stories were so vivid in my mind. It was very fast. Obviously, there's some stories that are not in there. But I wanted to put, some humor. I wanted to put the drama. I definitely wanted to tell my parents' story, because it's a love story of note.
It says the truth, it is brutal, it needs to be shared. That's very important. All of us need that, right?
Yes.
Sometimes we bottle everything up and we don't express when we really need to express certain emotions, certain things that we just hold in, right? And then one day it could explode.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And everyone has a story to tell.
Yes.
And stories have the power to heal, to teach. Stories are very powerful.
They
and we
are.
see that now, even at executive levels, where they tell people, they tell leaders, tell stories. That's what people remember.
Exactly right. Also you're inspiring, and it also fosters resilience.
Yes.
Where do you think your resilience comes from? Surviving all these different situations, which can be very empowering to somebody who's watching right now, who perhaps could be going through something similar in their life. Like, well, gee, look at Tina. She got the book. She's open and raw and real about everything here in the book. So definitely get the book. But here she is in our studio and opening up and sharing. Where does that resilience come from?
My faith.
It is the faith.
My faith is
huge for you.
everything.
Yeah. Call upon it often.
Absolutely. I
Gets
do
you
nothing
through.
in my own strength.
So what if somebody's watching and they're going through a lot of different things and they're not necessarily faith-based? What do they...
I think everybody believes in something.
Something.
Okay, that's important. But also, developing grit. Okay, that's the resilience.
Yeah.
I use resilience in the true meaning of the word, which is an engineering term. Okay, where they compress steel to see at what point it cracks. We have to just again put everything into perspective. I often say to some of my colleagues who, will approach me with some massive stress, and I'll say, is this going to matter next week?
Mm.
They think about it, and I say, will it matter next month?
Right.
No, and definitely not next year. So put it into perspective, prioritize health, family, friends, because those are the only things that are important.
Really, and the bottom line.
Absolutely.
When we're younger, we're chasing the brass ring and chasing all these things, and you also think you need to have 150 friends, and you realize, 2 or 3 really good ones are what solid ones who are there through thick and thin. Not when you're rolling in the money or just destitute, but always there.
Absolutely.
And you're there for them.
Yes. Yes.
Without any prerequisites. That's the best.
100%.
Yeah.
If you've got more than you can count on one hand,
Yes.
they're not friends.
And sometimes it takes time to live life, to learn that, right?
Yes.
You gather the wisdom. And there's so much in the book, there's so much wisdom. Were you hesitant at all to be so open, to be so real, to be so raw in the book, and to share your stories and the myriad of them that can really empower and influence other people? Were you resistant at all?
I really wasn't. Again, I did it all with a lot of prayer.
Yes.
And I must say there was a young lady who read the book when it was still a manuscript. And she was Asian. And she said to me, Tina, in Taiwan, someone who wrote a book like this committed suicide after writing the book. Are you okay? And I said to her, Tang, I'm absolutely fine. I've thought about this, I've prayed about this, and if it can help one person, I've lived on purpose, so.
Well, this is one of the beautiful things that you are a big believer in is cultural and emotional intelligence, coupled with this clear sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So if you are not culturally intelligent in today's day and age, you're not going to make it in the world of work. You're not actually going to make it at all.
It's a global community.
Correct,
now,
correct. And not only cultures across borders, but cultures within organizations.
Yeah.
So, bringing the emotional intelligence, the cultural intelligence, and even the adaptive intelligence, which came to the fore during the pandemic. If you weren't flexible enough to adapt, you just didn't make it.
You were pushed to the side.
Correct. So all of that, and the clarity of a prayerful life, I'm able to support others to reach their potential.
You spent 20 plus years working with some of the folks in the C-suites. Tell us about what that was like.
Yes. Difficult. You've heard the cliche, it's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And many of those executives have no one to share with. They dare not share within their own organization.
Yeah.
And they need support, they need coaching. A lot of people have the intelligence and the will to succeed, but without the support of a confidential, trusted advisor or coach,
Very important.
they can't get there. And so, having done it myself at a time when we didn't even have the internet, so buying books, trying to support, the way I'm thinking, is that correct or not? And what I'm seeing is so wrong. It's difficult. So I'm able to relate. You spoke about relating earlier. I'm able to relate because I've been there.
Right.
And so I can pull on some of those experiences to support these C-suite individuals.
You managed 4 successful businesses yourself, 2 in retail and an Australian teaching practice. Yeah. Tell us about all of that.
So we discussed the first one earlier. The second one was actually the teaching academy from Australia, and I got the franchise and took it to South Africa and opened up various studios. Fascinating work, very successful because the founder, Helen O'Grady, had really done her homework. She's outstanding. She'd done everything you've done, Jim, and then sat down and said, how do I teach this? And her work was outstanding. The detail of those manuals we had to follow. Obviously, as a franchise, you've got to conform. And she actually came to South Africa when I launched to check that I was doing everything correctly after the training that I'd had in Perth. And it really shot up extraordinarily fast, and eventually I sold it at a good profit, and it's flourishing today.
Is it really?
Yeah, and that was early. It
yeah.
was 2002, so really doing well now in South Africa.
I love the name of your leadership coaching practice, Epiphany. Tell us about that.
So it was because I'd seen the light.
Yes, more than one epiphany. Epiphany's leadership coaching.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then my Greek name, which is Fotini, has a feast day, a saint's day, on the 6th of January, which is Epiphany in Christian
Epiphany,
churches.
that's right.
And so I thought, you know what, this is important. Let's use that as a name.
But also, I think it's encouraging because a lot of your clients are going through various epiphanies, or they're on the verge of one, and the coaching sort of helps them realize that there can be an epiphany, which can be a beautiful thing, right?
There's nothing more rewarding than watching that light go on.
Yes.
Because they do it themselves.
Right.
Okay? They do it themselves through the powerful questioning. And I believe that everyone has within them the ability to find the solutions to what they bring to the table.
Honorary Global Ambassador, and you've also, and that's for, I mentioned Female Wave of Change in the USA, which is, I think, fantastic. But also you've served several global executive board positions as well. And you also sit on the President's Council at St. Thomas Aquinas College. Tell us about that.
Yes. So it's a phenomenal school in New York.
You're not a slacker. She's not a slacker, gang.
No, it's such an honor. She's just retired. The former president was just remarkable, and she'd been in the seat for 28 years. The school itself offers previously disadvantaged youngsters the most phenomenal opportunities, whether it's in their sport or their academics. They're miles ahead in terms of the science laboratories, the AI, the augmented reality. It's just a beautiful, beautiful school, and it was founded by nuns. And of course, it's not run by the nuns anymore, but superb tuition there for youngsters who probably otherwise wouldn't go to university.
Wouldn't have these options and these opportunities. What a beautiful thing, huh?
It's magnificent, and it's a model that can be replicated.
That's incredible. You're also the executive advisor to the board at Frisbee Group in Palm Beach, Florida.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So the Frisbee Group, it's a family business, a family office, and they are real estate investors and operators. The family are extraordinary. So 3 founders, 3 brothers, and then second generation. So the second generation, there's 8 of them, and they're all in their 30s. Superb model of how a family should operate. But their work is extraordinary. Magnificent developments.
Really terrific.
Beautiful.
South Florida.
There's heart in it. They do placemaking, so the whole community benefits. It's not just one development. They take care of the whole community. And a very thorough process of engaging the community. What are the needs? What are the sore points before we come in?
Bring everybody to the table.
Yes.
Wow.
And they work with world-renowned architects. We're about to do a massive project with Robert A.M. Stern, and it's magnificent.
So would it be safe to say that Frisbee is an exemplary company? It wouldn't be far-flung to say that about Frisbee.
Not at all. Not at all. As I mentioned earlier, I've had 18 jobs. I've been in many companies, also in many
Grandmother to baby Alexa.
Yes.
Now we get to the good stuff, right? The joyful stuff. Tell us about, again, the family, Nicholas, his wife, the baby. That brings, that's a full circle, joyful situation in your life.
Absolutely.
And I can tell because look at the transformation in your face. Your eyes are tingling, and it's like glowing, and the cheeks are.
Yeah, no, she's stolen my heart. She's just turned 1 year old.
Wow.
But yes, Nicholas married a magnificent young lady, Lisa. They married 5 years ago in Disney World. It
Did
was,
they really?
in fact, a
Wow.
magical experience. And
Pun intended.
yeah,
Magical experience.
and they told me they're not going to have children. So the joy of, them announcing the pregnancy,
Oh, so
I have, again, a
this
miracle.
was a total surprise.
Total surprise.
Wow.
Full joy. I'm very blessed. I'm very, very blessed.
That's incredible, huh? We all have our heroes, and I know there's one chapter in the book where you talk about your dad, your hero. Tell us about that.
My dad was an extraordinary man. He really was. He taught me so much. He only didn't teach me how to live without him.
That's actually
Yeah.
an interesting, that's the first time I've actually heard somebody say that about a loved one, or especially a parent. Taught me everything, but not how to live without him.
Yeah,
Wow.
he was just larger than life, and he was a 6'6",
But he was
Adonis,
charismatic.
he was
and
magnificent.
He was
But he
a
was
shining light.
quiet.
Yeah, but understated.
Yes, yes, very powerful. Everything that came out of his mouth was powerful, carefully thought out. He'd
Yeah.
lived through the war, in Greece itself, because although he was born in South Africa, my grandfather was so patriotic, he went back during the Second World War. And it cost my dad his education. But my dad was a hard-working individual, superb sportsman. He was chosen to go to the Olympics for target shooting and clay pigeon shooting. He didn't go.
Yeah.
It was during sanctions against South Africa. And it was in Japan the year he was chosen to go. And so when they had the Olympics, this past one in Japan, it brought back a lot of emotion. But rational, careful, loving, protective. He protected me against everything, really, and would come to my rescue through my traumatic marriage. Never ever knew that there'd been physical abuse.
Yeah.
If he had,
That would have been.
my father would have been in jail. So,
Right.
I couldn't tell him. But what a role model, and for my son. My son was 18 years old when my dad died, and so that was his role model and remains.
Yeah.
And in fact, genetics run deep. I look at him
Yes.
talking and I think,
You're seeing the same. Yeah, it's been, the baton has been passed.
yes.
On many
yes,
levels. How
yes.
much of your dad is in you?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. My mother wouldn't hesitate to tell
say,
me if
You're
she
just
wasn't
like your
happy.
father.
A lot, and in fact that's when we realized early on that I'm an empath, because he'd had quite a difficult business transaction and lost a tremendous amount of money. I was only 11 years old and all my hair fell out.
From the stress. Of the situation, yeah.
And, no one knew what that was, but one of the specialists that my mom took me to said, has anything stressful happened in the family?
Within the house, yeah.
And, when she told the doctor, she said, but she wouldn't realize that she was 11 years old, So, yes, I was very, very close to him. I'm a middle child.
Yeah.
And so...
So did you have to feel like you had to prove yourself more and stand out more?
Always.
Yeah.
And to this day. you know.
The middle child.
And the middle child shoulders all the weight as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense for both the older and the younger. You have a chapter in here on, you know, empath and Tiny Tina, and really what's the great escape?
The great escape is, in fact, the marriage, getting
Just
out.
getting from that.
Because of the abusiveness and the threats. You know, if you leave me, I'll kill you.
Right. Yeah.
How I got away was unbelievable, you know, and literally walked out as though I was going to work.
And
I told my son, I said the night before, I said, pack your sports bag with things you never want to leave behind. And we left, you know, so the great escape.
And don't turn back, don't turn back.
No.
A real woman with testicular fortitude. That is a chapter. It is.
Yes.
You can find it on page 73. You must have had fun doing this too, the elements of it when you were
very
coming
much
up
so.
with.
I wanted to bring a lot
levity.
of that in as well.
Tell us about that particular one.
So it was during my tenure as CEO, and it was a non-profit. It's this 10,000 members, and my employees didn't have health insurance.
Oh.
So one of the big 4 banks in South Africa was a sponsor of ours, and I said, well, what you can do, because they wanted the research I'd done research on women in leadership. One of the things you can do is get my employees health insurance. And they said, well, we're a bank, we don't really offer that. I said, you sit in the stable of Old Mutual, that's listed on the London Stock Exchange, and Old Mutual is an insurance company.
Right, yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
So they set up a meeting with the CEO of Old Mutual, and off I went.
Here she goes again.
With the head of sponsorship of the bank, Graham, and I was delighted that I was going to meet, you know, the CEO of Old Mutual, and he introduced me as a real woman with testicular fortitude. Now, I was horrified, so I just carried on. We finished the meeting and we walked out, and I said, what was that? And he said, Tina, it's a compliment. I said, what? I said, first of all, what is a real woman? Okay. And second of all, he said, in our weekly status meetings, you're always so calm. You're very elegant. You know, we used to, some of the women who come and meet with us that pound the table.
You're right in there, yeah.
And that, of course, also gave me insight, because sadly, a lot of senior women substitute aggression for assertiveness, and it's not necessary. Obviously, from that day, I thought I now need to make a point of being very feminine. I put on big earrings and wore florals. And
Lots of pink.
But that's, you know, he thought he was complimenting me, and I said, that's a very backhanded compliment.
That's a little bit different, yeah. It's a little
He
bit
said,
different.
you're strong, you get things done, but, you know, you're a real woman. I said, now we've got to discuss this real woman thing.
Right, right. And the testicular, I mean, that's a whole other... That's amazing. There's also, too, you sort of finish it off with, you know, I should have listened. Well, that's one section. There's a whole bunch of them here, too. But that one particular stood out. I should have listened. Or I should have listened and learned. But tell us about the listening.
So when I had the Drama Academy, the Helen O'Grady Drama Academy, it literally ran from 2 in the afternoon till 6 in the evening. And I thought, you know, this is a startup business. I've paid a lot of money for the franchise.
Yes.
I could be earning in the mornings. So I thought, let me do a half day.
Yeah.
Anything, but nothing too dramatic to drain me.
Right.
Because I want to bring my best self to the teaching. And I applied for a couple of roles through the newspaper. And literally within about half an hour, the phone rang, and this magnificent voice, rich, resonant voice of a man said, "Fotini, that's Greek." I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you Greek?" I said, "Yes." He asked, "Where did the Thomson come from?" I said, "Who am I speaking to?" He said, "What is your maiden name?" And I told him, and he said, "Tina, I know you." I said, "Who are you?"
I didn't know me, yeah, right.
Anyway, it was the CFO of the company I'd applied for this half-day job. And he said, "This is not for you. This is not a role that's for you." And I said, "If it's available for me, I want it."
I'll take it.
He said, "Tina, I'm telling you right now, if you were my wife," I said, "Hey, I'm not your wife." And this is all over the phone. "Can I have the job?" I said, "No, let's meet up and discuss it. You'll need to have an interview, etc., etc." I met up with him. His name is Peter, and very charming. And I did remember him from my youth. He was 9 years older than me, so growing up, you don't, you see someone 9 years older as very old. And he kept saying, "Don't do this." He said, "This is, and I said, "I want to do the interview." I got the job.
Right.
And all along he said, "I'm not happy about this." We actually started dating. And he kept saying, "I don't like you to be there. It's not the right place for you."
Yeah.
That's one of the places I got held up at gunpoint.
Really?
And I should have listened to him. I should have listened. I left straight away.
Yeah,
after. It was dangerous.
Really extraordinary stories that you document in here, and that you share. What is your overall hope? What is the takeaway that you hope people do absorb and maybe sort of apply to their own lives upon reading this book?
I think the resilience, okay, that you can actually go from survival, surviving, to thriving.
To thriving, yeah.
You can. And that's what I hope people see. And that is actually, initially when I first published, which was 2016, there was quite a lot about it on Facebook in those days. I'm not on Facebook now, but I had many people say to me, "Tina, that gave me the inspiration to either whistleblow." There were two whistleblowings, to leave a marriage, to love more, to forgive. So there were all these different aspects that I thought, when I wrote it, I said, if one person can benefit, but there have been, people take from it what they will, and the vignettes stand alone. They, you don't have to read the whole book if you don't want to, but I've never publicized it, I've never marketed it, but those people who have read it, it is on Amazon, have all remarked that, it did give them that extra motivation to do what they were thinking of doing or what they had never even anticipated doing.
What would the Tina of today say to the Tina of those years ago?
Sure. A lot. Probably, have more fun, get out there. You don't have to be so conservative to make it in the world of work. Just relax and have fun.
And you are?
I am, now that I've moved to Florida. The first 10 years in New York were hard. It's really hard. Coming into the country, on an H-1B visa, so you've really got to prove yourself to get the green card eventually.
Get the green card, yeah.
And I did do it the hard way. I did it through work. I didn't do it any other way.
Just did,
So
nose to the grindstone.
now, you know, my son's happily married. He's now
Yeah.
a father.
Your grandmother. Yeah.
Lisa's an amazing wife. So they don't need me anymore. Now it's time for me, even though it's a bit late in life. But
Coaching still, to the whole
Yes.
coaching and
Yes.
individuals, groups, teams.
so I do a lot of internal coaching at Frisbee Group because I do the operations there. I head up operations. And then I do a couple of individuals, not too many. At C-suite level, people have a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And as an empath, and because I want to support them, I absorb it. And so I've got to debrief. I can't share it. Okay, so I have to have time to debrief in between.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't even hold in everything that you hear that people pour out to you. You have to have some refreshment, refreshing and like a cleansing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you can start the slate clean again for the next one.
Absolutely.
This is incredible. So you're inspired and you're blessed and you're grateful.
Very grateful.
And you're showing others how they can be that way and joyful, live a joyful, complete life.
Absolutely, and that inner joy that no one can take away from you.
That's right.
No one can take it away unless you allow them to.
Right, exactly. So that's something to remember too, to not allow people to do that. And joy is a lot deeper than just happy. Happy is more of a temporary thing. When it's your birthday and you're slicing the cake and opening the gifts, you're happy.
Yes.
But joy is really to the core.
Correct.
And a lot of people are chasing happy. They should be working towards joy, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This was a pleasure. Thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you.
Of course.
Is there a final thought that you would like to leave with our viewers who maybe they're liking what we're talking about? They're going to get the book. Again, it's available at Amazon, and we'll mention the website she has as well. But they're sort of like, they're going through a lot right now, and they feel stuck. They feel frozen in time. They don't feel like there is a life preserver out there. What would you say to that person right now who's watching, who's in that spot?
I would say to them, find someone you trust and talk it out. Once you share it and you can hear yourself, a lot of things fall into place, a lot of epiphanies.
Yeah.
But make sure it's someone you can trust. And sometimes you need 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
You may need someone, you know, if it's work-related, that is in the workplace, not the same place that you are, but someone that can relate, someone that's in the same situation or has been through it. That is the magic. That, you know, once you see someone else has done this, and I can share it, and I too can survive and thrive.
That's what you're doing, and you can do it too, gang. Connect with her, because again, she's an extraordinary person, and this was really extraordinary having you come to our studio and share all of this in the open way and authentic way that you do. Tina, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. I hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you.
I really have, and I appreciate every moment of your precious time.
I thank you very much. Continued blessings and joy in your life, and continued success, and stay in touch. Keep us posted on all the wonderful things you're doing.
Will do. Thank you so much, and bless you.
You're very welcome. If you'd like to learn more and connect with our special guest, Tina Thomson, visit this website, tina-thompson.com. Her book, Good Souls, Bad Souls, and Assholes, is available at Amazon. For Close-Up Television and Radio, I'm Jim Masters. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.